Mokua that whatever happens in Olkalau would be a strong signal of what could happen in 2027. But I say that still considering the report by the Kofi Annan Foundation. There isn't one that said that there is a likelihood that there's 84.1% chance that Kenya will experience electoral violence next year. As a political risk analyst, this is a signal, even according to the Daily Nation, 2027 signal of what could happen. Uhuni, fujo, hongo. Yeah? So forget about the turnout and the results for a bit. But is this a strong indication of what to expect next year?
Well, you know, when that Kofi Annan Foundation comes up with that kind of a prediction and a framework, and given this by-election, then it means that our political leaders and all the law enforcement agencies, they must actually do an audit of this by-election and find out the weak points. Because what happened yesterday was unacceptable. When you see people driving top-of-the-range vehicles and armed with what appears to be lethal weapons, then at that stage you don't know whether these are actually law enforcement officers or whether they're goons. The probability does exist that they are law enforcement officers because, you know, the way they were running around town with that level of alacrity, a political goon may not do that. Although still, political goons can do that if they know they've got the cover of politicians. And that can be used as a strategy for, you know, voter strategy to ensure that people do not come out, voter suppression, to ensure that people do not come out and vote. So one would expect that the law enforcement agencies would actually do an audit of all these guys who were around town, the way they were driving those top-of-the-range vehicles, you know, scaring everybody. That is something which must be done. And then number two, political parties and the political parties' leadership must come together and everybody agrees that then next year's election is going to reflect the interests and aspirations of the citizens, not the interests and aspirations of the political leaders who may want to win either by hook or crook. Now, if they come up with that kind of a framework, which has got very clear pecuniary as well as criminal penalties, then people will know that you cannot afford to play around with this election. And then number two, and this is where politics becomes interesting, a few days before the election, everybody had cast aspersions on IBC's capacity to do an election, or even to deliver a free, fair, and credible election. And that is not just limited to Kenya. A few hours ago in the US, Trump has given a position about the way the elections were infiltrated. Now it appears that we are going to have our politicians, just like in the US in Kenya, when the election reflects your interests and aspirations, you say IBC has done a good job, like what the winner has indicated. And I suspect, had he lost, he would have cast aspersions on IBC's capacity to do elections. So again, it's incumbent on IBC to go to the top, literally, of every mountain, now in this case, Mount Kenya, Mount Kilimanjaro, and preach to the entire world. And we have said these times above number, that they've created predictable systems for unpredictable outcomes. If they do that, then people will be comfortable with the decisions made. And they say that in democracy, one of the key components is the art of accepting defeat. That when you're beaten in an election, you must actually concede. And it doesn't matter where this by-election is located or where the election is located, you must concede. Because if you do not concede, then that is a recipe for disaster. So at that stage, you give credit to the DP Kindiki. He was among the first people to concede defeat and say that we've been walloped, so it's now 1-1. Let's face the next election with a lot of interest. But the implications for this, I think, are going to be very, very, I mean, right now the people are going to be bleeding.
Yes, and I will come to that because there's a lot to be discussed, including